Assalamu alaikum, Molweni. Good evening, Hoyanand, Mahaha, Bonsoir, Baunote, to our international delegates or attendees. My name is Tokir Ahmed, and this is the SAICE Fireside Chat in collaboration with the SAICE Academy. Thank you for connecting with us today. We hope that today's topic will be thought-provoking for you. Today is our 12th Fireside Chat. If you want to view all our previous Fireside Chat, you can find them all on YouTube. If you go to the SAICE channel, it's called SAICE TV. So the link, I will then post the link in the chat as the session goes along. So do connect and join, and you can then enjoy all the previous episodes. And if you are watching this on YouTube, do like and subscribe down below. And turn on the notifications so that you will get notified each and every time we then put up new videos. So again, for those who are new, we run these, every month on the second Thursday of every month. It's mainly, aimed at civil engineers. We are looking at, topics for that, have a bearing back on civil engineers. We look at innovation, smart technologies, matters of mutual importance, and engagement and collaboration with other organizations and other fields. And yeah, so we host this, as I said, on the second Thursday of every month. And as much as the main focus is on civil engineering, everyone is welcomed, and we encourage all professions to join and connect and engage in the conversations. So our conversation does cover multiple fields. So we are open to encouraging everyone to join. So we also want you as an audience to then participate. So what you'll find is that once the presentations are done, there's an open Q&A, open discussion. And so that's where we want you to connect and raise your hand, drop your comment in the chat box, and let's have a conversation. This is meant to be a conversation. It's a fireside chat. So we have a conversation and discuss the topic that's being presented. So today's main topic, we were talking about health and safety and well-being, and safety being beyond Passe. It's a French word. So again, it's a provocative title. It challenged us to reevaluate our traditional approach to health and safety in the civil engineering and construction sector. For too long, health and safety has been viewed as a compliance exercise, a set of rules and checklists to avoid incidents. But true safety and certainly holistic well-being goes far beyond mere compliance. It's about fostering culture where every individual thrives, where inherent risks are designed out, and where engineers play a proactive role in creating a truly safe, healthy, and supportive working environment. So our schedule today, so we may run slightly over, so we might want you just to maybe hold on just a little longer, and maybe until quarter past 6, just to allow for some of the conversation discussion. But yeah, we'll pick that up towards the end. And again, this is a SAICE platform, and for those who are not, members of SAICE, we encourage you to become members. So I'll also then drop in, connections, back to SAICE. For those who may be interested in becoming members, we encourage you. If you're a civil engineer, we encourage you to join SAICE. There's a lot of benefits in being part of SAICE. So today we are being joined by legendary experts in the field, and the session is also going to be co-hosted by my colleague Andrew van Krooting, who will also then run this session for us. So I think that having said that, Andrew, let me hand over to you, and if you can then bring in the panel and run your introduction and run the panel from your side. Andrew, if you can come through, thanks.
Thank you, Takir. Today we have two speakers and then myself right at the end just to wrap things up. The two speakers are Professor John Smallwood and Mr. William Pierce Jones. Professor Smallwood is going to just introduce the topic of health, safety, and wellness at 20 to 5, and that should take us about 20 minutes. Then William will have a 20-minute presentation, which is a pictorial display of health and safety situations and the stories behind them. And then Professor Smallwood will take to the mic again at 10 past 5, and he's going to talk about the role of engineers in health, safety, and wellness. Then at about 25 to 6, we'll have a closure by myself. That should take us about 5 minutes, where I have a very quick slideshow on the role of the Engineering Council and health and safety in the construction industry. Then at about 20 to 6, we will start the discussion. And as Takir mentioned earlier, we'll probably keep things open until about 6:15. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce the two speakers quickly. So firstly, Professor Smallwood. Professor Smallwood is the Professor of Construction Management in the Department of Construction Management at the Nelson Mandela University in the Eastern Cape. He is the Principal of Construction Research, Education and Training Enterprises, or CREATE for short. He has an MSc and a PhD, both in construction management, and both of these studies addressed construction health and safety. He's conducted extensive research and published in the areas of construction health and safety, ergonomics, and occupational health, but also in the areas of construction management, education and training, environmental management, health and well-being, primary health promotion, quality management, risk management, and the practice of construction management. He participates in the Chartered Institute of Building and received a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contribution to the Working Commission since 1995. In 2024, he participated in the Safety, Health and Well-being in Construction International Conference at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana on the 9th of October 2024. So that's Professor Smallwood. Then I'm just going to quickly say a few words about William Pierce Jones as well, who will be our second speaker. So William, as he describes himself, he grew up in Cape Town, but now he's cured. He started life in the carpentry trade. Then he moved on to architectural drafting. Then he moved on to engineering drafting. And his interest in health and safety started when he was told by BP at the time that there was a talk on health and safety in Port Elizabeth, and that's where he met John Smallwood, who is now Professor Smallwood. William moved to the UK in the year 2000 and worked as a technician in the structural field. He came back to South Africa 4 years later in 2004, and he started work on a domestic construction project, but worked mainly in construction, health and safety. He currently is heading up the health and safety division of engineering advice and services in Quebec in the Eastern Cape. And outside of his day job, he has been chairman of the Four Winds Music Club. He runs the ACASM Nelson Mandela Bay Metro chapter. That's the Association for Construction Health and Safety Managers in the Eastern Cape. And he is the Commodore of the Red House Yacht Club. So that's a little bit about the speakers. I'm now going to hand over to Professor Smallwood to introduce the topic of health, safety, and wellness. Over to you, Professor.
Can I share? Can you share the screen? Okay.
Yes, you can share the screen.
Oh, no, battling here. Apologies, folks. I'm now a bit confused as to where it is.
So John, right up near the leave button, just to the left of the leave button is an arrow pointing up. Top
There.
right. Yeah.
Top right.
Top
Yeah,
right, there's a leave button. Next to that, there is an arrow, in a white arrow in a blue or a black square. Click on that. And then you should have an option of either screen or window. I recommend screen. And then you should be good to go. You found it, John? I think it looks like John clicked the leave button instead of the share button, Andrew. Let's just wait for him to rejoin. He's gone out of the meeting, so
Yeah, sure.
it happens often. Don't worry. It's not a new thing. It's a health and safety risk in Teams.
I wonder why Microsoft put them so close together.
Probably to test our patience for more than anything else. So, does somebody have John on speed dial? Because he may not. Oh, there he is, coming back in. Right. So John, you click the leave button instead of the share button. That's why you disappeared. You are muted. If you can unmute again for Andrew's benefit. Prof.
Yes, no, this has never happened before, so it's a bit annoying. I don't know why I can't get to my folder.
So it's not Teams, John. It's more. Oh, okay.
There we are. We can see it now, John.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
John, can I just check in case there's no sound in any of your slides? It'll be you.
No.
Okay, cool.
No, it's me.
Cool.
Okay. Can you see it clearly now?
Yeah, you 100% good to go.
Okay. Apologies to you and everyone. I've never experienced this problem before. Anyway, the introduction. First, thanks to SAICE for affording me the opportunity to present today. Just in terms of H&S performance, the fatality rate for the South African construction industry in 2024 was 20.1. The accident rate was 2.19, that's per 100 workers, and the disabling injury incidence rate was 0.29 per 100 workers. Now you'll note in the second blue bullet point that the fatality rate for the Australian construction industry was 2.1 and the UK was 2.1. Figure 1 presents the current health and safety status of South African construction, and this is presented using Anglo American's health and safety journey model. And you'll note these 6 stages: basic, reactive, compliant, which you, Andrew, referred to, and proactive and resilient. Now, this is a very, very recent study. In fact, it's currently still underway. And these are findings from the pilot phase as such. We will be reporting on them, that is Dr. Relili and I, at a conference in the UK in early September. But it's notable that little interest in health and safety doing the minimum to get by, which is defined as basic. 56.4% of respondents identified it. Reactive, aware that H&S is an issue, but usually responding to issues, 30.9%. Compliant, 5.5%. And then proactive, 5.5%, and resilient, 1.8%. Now, more importantly, the mean score based on the percentage responses to those 5 points is 1.65, and that indicates the status is between basic and reactive. So not a healthy picture. Table 1 presents the findings of 2 studies, 2021, which study was undertaken for the state of the South African construction industries seminar organized by the Construction Industry Development Board. I had to deliver a keynote address, so I couldn't go and regurgitate. So I conducted an empirical study. It was quite a difficult time during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then more recently, I replicated the study in 2014. I must just add immediately that the study followed the George building collapse. And that is probably the reason why you'll notice the health and safety on projects is achieved a mean score of 3.19 in 2024 vis-a-vis 3.3 in 2021. Now, those mean scores are between 1 and 5, so 3 is the midpoint. So any mean score 3 and below indicates that the rating is below average, and any mean score above 3 indicates that the rating is above average. So you'll notice in 2024, there are only 4 aspects / parameters that were rated above average, at least H&S on projects, environmental management on projects, empowerment, and legal compliance. But note towards the bottom of the table, mental health, 2.26 in 2024, work-life balance, 2.22. So those, among others, are key well-being issues. Now, safety itis is a major problem in the South African construction industry. It's a sub-disease, as I refer to it, of South African itis. Using safety in is alleged all-encompassing term, and it really must cease. The MOS Act, as we note, in 1983 was replaced by the OH&S Act. And needless to say, the health issues are greater than the safety issues, and even worse, they're latent as opposed to patent. The 2 aspects in terms of health, occupational health and primary health. And in many cases, they are interrelated. Furthermore, the number 1 H&S issue in construction globally is mental health, and related thereto, table 2 presents 18 of 53 people in construction issues as identified by respondents to the study. You'll notice there's a mean double column on the right-hand side of the table, and mental health's ranked first, workforce well-being second, workforce engagement, which of course impacts on well-being, is ranked third, health and safety fourth, which was not unexpected, and the proverbial productivity 5. Moving on, definitions. Personally, I do not enjoy presenting definitions, but I do need to. So health, according to the WHO, state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. The Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993 defines healthy as being free from illness or injury attributable to occupational causes, and furthermore, safe as being free from any hazard. Well-being there, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, includes the presence of positive emotions and moods, the absence of negative emotions, satisfaction with life, fulfillment, and positive functioning. Now, that's a mouthful, and it's not, if you can imagine, it's a major mouthful for construction workers working out in the elements for 9 hours per day, probably, and more than 5 days per week. So well-being includes physical, economic, social, development and activity, emotional, psychological, life satisfaction, domain-specific satisfaction, engaging activities and work. That's a tall order for construction, but that's what well-being includes. The other big issue in terms of the introduction is cost, quality, and time. This is another Passe paradigm, as I refer to it, and it's terrifying. I shouldn't use emotional terms when attending conferences and someone will stand up and present a triangle: cost, quality, and time. It's so dated. It's hilarious. But it marginalizes health and safety, and for that matter, well-being. H&S is a value, not a priority. Often H&S is referred to as a priority. However, the reality is that priorities change, and they may change on a daily or even half-daily basis. So therefore, H&S should be a value. First consideration. Just the Sustainable Development Goals, I would hope that most of us are familiar therewith. And I'll cherry pick number 3, good health and well-being, although that's in an individual's personal life and working life. Clean water and sanitation. I would hope we provide clean water for construction workers. Decent work and economic growth. That's another mouthful. As I say, it's not the number of jobs that we create, but it's the nature of the jobs we create. And then, of course, responsible consumption and production. construction workers are not consumables, and in fact, construction supervisors, managers, and for that matter, designers are also not consumables. And I would say that is a succinct overview of the SDGs that are relevant to today. Why is construction so backward? One of my favorite titles, and you'll notice it was published in 2004. There's an extract from page 43. So long as construction remains a backward industry, safety within it will be backward. Pardon the reference to safety, but I'm quoting verbatim. So long as off-site manufacturing remains a footnote to general building, a lot of accidents are bound to happen in the hurly-burly rush to get on-site work completed on time. It's a fascinating read. I recommend it. The cover itself alludes to the issues. I included this slide, how we transport workers. It's courtesy of the late Terence Matola, who in his time was an Eastcape Master Builders Association health and safety advisor based in East London, Buffalo City. And we included this in the Construction Industry Development Board's Health and Safety Status Report published in 2009. And I had to phone Terence and ask him for his permission to include it, and he was more than happy. Of course, that's now taking matters a bit far, but this is how the industry often transports workers. They get mixed up with plant and equipment and materials. And here's another nice view. Now, why am I presenting these? Well, motor vehicle accidents during the course of construction contribute approximately 40% to fatalities. So construction workers are not just dying on sites, but they're dying on the roads. Respect, or rather the lack of, for people. I took this photo on the Cision expansion project, very large construction project back then in 2007, and lockers on the same project. And then the golden rule, some people may not be religious in nature or whatever, but I do need to mention the golden rule, and it establishes a moral level of care for others. And if you are Christian, just please remember there are other religions, so hopefully you're not offended. Buddhists, hurt not others in ways that you would find hurtful. Christian, all things whatsoever he would do that men should do to you, do he even so to them. Hindu, this is the sum of the duty. Do naught unto others, which if done to thee would cause thee pain. Islam, no one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself. So the golden thread running through all religions is I am my brother and sister's keeper. Just incidentally, I've undertaken 2 studies, the role of religion in occupational health and safety, and presented them in 2002 and 2018. Just some better practice. I was privileged to visit the Department of Construction Management at Lund University in Lund, and they were busy with the Maxwell project. This is a construction workers' change room. Please note, there's a shower cubicle on your left, and on your right are lockers, and there's a nice beechwood bench adjoining the lockers. And then when you view their mess area, you'll notice the beechwood tables, beechwood chairs, there's a fridge, and there's a microwave and a coffee machine, or not just one of each, there's a set. Their clothes hooks as well. Notice the level of illumination. So that is the first world approach to managing construction and treating people, that is construction workers, with respect. However, good things do happen in Southern Africa. In this particular case, Namibia features. It's just that OJ Construction, the 2 brothers happen to be graduates from our program, and they certainly transport their workers in an appropriate manner. So does Rand Civils in Port Elizabeth. I have a second photo which depicts another bus. So they do not just have one. And then there's CSV Construction, which is based in Cape Town. So there are contractors that endeavor to do things right. and to treat people with respect. So thank you, Chair. That's the introduction.
Thanks, Prof. Smallwood, very much. We're just running 5 minutes behind, but thank you very much for a very profound, if I can use the word, introduction. Our next speaker, as I said earlier, will be William Pierce-Jones. William, are you okay technology-wise to share your screen?
We're going to give it a bash.
Great. Spoken like a carpenter.
I think that's it. Yeah, we're just waiting for it to load.
Ah, well done.
Yeah.
So you didn't leave the room like your predecessor. Well done. Thank you,
No,
William.
I had my girlfriend help me sort it out. So
Okay, great.
quite funny
Over to you.
with John was saying about religion. I got into a serious amount of trouble when I was younger and more maybe hostile. When I asked a contractor if he went to church, and he said yes, and I said, but why? And then I had to phone my boss and say, this is what I've just done, because I realized I didn't spot the bother there. So I'm going to speak to you about temporary works, and I'm going to show you some pictures on temporary works. I presume what I'm seeing is not what you're seeing, in that you don't see the bottom slides.
You are in display mode, so you're showing us what we should see, correct?
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, just a little quick thing. In the law in South Africa, the apex law is the Constitution. Then we've got Acts of Parliament, like the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and then we've got the regulations. And I'm telling you this because there was an advocate that used to work for the Department of Labour, I think, that I met at a CASM conference, and he told me, you don't try and nail someone on a regulation, you nail them on an Act of Parliament. Now, the designers are in the Act of Parliament. They are mentioned in the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So,
sorry, William,
yeah,
you're not showing.
No, he is. I think it's on your side. We can see Constitution, Acts of Parliament, and regulations on the slide. William, I presume that's correct?
yes.
We're about to check the chat. We have few that cannot see it.
Yeah, I think that the solution for that is leave and rejoin. That normally solves the problem, but it's all good on the main feed side.
Okay.
There we go. I think they are doing that, William. Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's not a problem. I see quite a few thumbs up. So, do we wait for them? Maybe I must just carry on.
Yeah,
okay,
William, please carry on, because we are running slightly behind time. Thanks.
All right. So what is temporary works? In the construction regulations, they say it's false work, form work, support work, scaffolding, shoring, temporary structures designed to provide support or means of access to the construction work. I don't really agree with that. I think that's they've boxed themselves in. And I did some online search and the YouTube channels and things like that. And in the UK, you get a temporary works engineer. So a lot of them refer to temporary works as an engineered solution. And you guys are all engineers. For me, it's the stuff the client pays for and doesn't get. And that opens up a whole thing, because we got these. I won't read all that to you. But what about the temporary access roads, temporary signs, detours, hoarding, site camps, carport for the engineer, jacks, and I'll get to that, barricading, deviations for the traffic animals. Yeah, there's a whole lot more. Now I want you to take off your thinking cap where you want to look at SANS codes and have a look at this slide. That was access scaffolding, and they've obviously painted the building and removed the scaffold planks because they probably needed them somewhere else. Now, I can't zoom in here, but think of this: basic theory of structures 101. You've got a cross brace going to nowhere, and then another cross brace starting at nowhere and going to a node. And if they just raised or lowered that row of ledges, they could have had decent cross bracing. Also, scaffolding in windy areas, you can go 3 times the shortest dimension in the plan, which would be over here at the bottom. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, we can see it, William.
Oh, thanks. So that's 1.2 meters. So 3 times that is obviously 3.6, which would be over here somewhere. But these guys have gone all the way to the top. What they would normally do is they'd brace this thing down over here to other standards. But this, Kippy decided he'd brace this. Oh boy, sorry. He's put jacks on the top of the scaffold and jacked onto the underside of the soffit. Anyway, there's not much that one can do about this when you get to site and the guys have stopped working. But just, I think what I'm trying to say here is we don't need to have a SAICE code. If you look at it at scaffolding, you need to say, would my mom be able to walk on that? Would my child be able to walk on that? And if you have a problem with that, you need to go and look at the SAICE code. But you don't have the SAICE code first. This is support work at the Edge Hospital in PE. Cross bracing going to the node, cross bracing going to the node. Planks, sole boards all the way along there. But if you look at this upright over here, it's not parallel to this concrete column. So there's something wrong there. Just something that one should look at. There's a favorite one for me. There are 4 holes in the bottom of this base plate, and those holes are there to put spikes or nails into a piece of wood. A piece of wood steel doesn't slide well on wood, and wood doesn't slide well on concrete. You'll notice there's a ledger going that way, but nothing on either side over here. So the possibility of someone knocking into that with a wheelbarrow full of dugger and knocking it off that is big. John, this is support work signed off by PR Eng. You'll notice, guys, the beam is not running on top of the column over here. Neither there. And while there's lots of bracing and stuff like that, look at the sole plates at the bottom here. All single bits of wood, offcuts. And they might be compliant in the fact that I think the minimum length is 450. But you could have run continuous sole plates there and had less chance of movement. And as I say, it was signed off by an engineer, but this is the result. The soffit line over here intersects with the soffit line over here, somewhere in the middle over here. If you turn this upside down, you can have a skateboard park. The whole soffit of this building was waving because the support work, although it was designed, although it was signed off by an engineer, and it didn't fall over because the concrete's there, those little planks sunk into the ground because it was wet on the support work. Then if you look at this back propping, that's not vertical. I don't think any of these props are vertical. And if your props aren't vertical, you're not going to be holding up what you think you should be holding up. And if you are the RE on the site and you don't see this, then we have an issue. This job, incidentally, was abandoned eventually. The multi-story, well, it's 2-story grandstand stadium thing. And I think the contractor realized that the cost to fix that was just too much. Okay, this is a standard quick stage scaffolding. You guys will notice there's a hole over here and a hole over here. And if you could twist this, call it washer on the spigot, you'd be able to see right through that pipe. And there's a reason for that. You're supposed to have pins inside. Oh, damn it. You're supposed to have pins going through here. Get back to your theory of structures. If you've got a 4-poster, let's say a table, which is actually a scaffolding, and you're working on a wall, the 2 table legs closest to the wall are going to be in compression. And therefore, the ones that are furthest away from the wall are going to be in tension. And if you've got that sort of detail that you see there on a 5-story building that hasn't been connected, there's a good chance you're going to have an accident. So it's just something that we need to look at. And for some reason, I mean, I've been told that this will compress under its own weight, so there's no need for it. Then why would a mass production company put holes in pipes? So that would be a waste of money. This is Grinica LTA at its best. This is I've forgotten the name of the company, but this is the new scaffolding. I wish I could. John, help me with the name. The company that supplies us, please.
Formscaf.
No, not Formscaf. Their opposition. Perry up. Okay. And in fact, this building, the building that I showed you right in the beginning, is also a product of Perry. If we just go. So this is Grinica LTA's health and safety officer closing the access here because there's no handrails upstairs. And this was phase one of a two-phase building, and that's what the health and safety officer is supposed to do, and management accepted that. Okay, but then things started going wrong. Again, look at the propping over here. It's not vertical. It's not plumb. You're not supporting the load from the top to where you should be supporting the load at the bottom. And in the site meeting, and I was backed by the project manager that the health and safety agent shouldn't be picking this up on a company like that. Same site. See, here we're sort of in line. Here we're sort of in line. But here we're doing a shear test. So we're not in line. We're not transferring that top to the bottom. So this is the Nelson Mandela University student accommodation. It's cast in situ concrete. There's your formwork over there. So they've cast the first floor and the first floor ceiling, or the ground floor and the ground floor ceiling, or the first floor. There's your formwork. All these windows are made part of the formwork. So once you have one hole here, you can measure up and you can start making 150 windows because they'll all be exactly the same size. Really, when we started this project, I did it with a guy, Rano Varneveld helped Grinica with the health and safety plan, and we put together the application for the permit, and then we realized that if we just send this stuff to, in our case, East London, no one's going to understand what we're doing. So we actually drove up there and gave the guy, Joy Mabasu, a presentation on this whole concept of construction, and he studied under Professor Smallwood, and he was very excited. But yeah, so if we're not going to transfer our loads down, then we're going to break something. Oh, I don't know what I've done there.
Are you trying to advance the slide?
There we go.
There we go. Yeah,
okay, this is also on that same site. So you can see 25 MPa concrete reinforced and a 5 MPa broken brick. Same thing on that side, except they've got obviously 25 MPa air gap between the two of it. Same site, look at the condition of that scaffolding. In hindsight, I should have known things were going wrong. Okay. This is 100 and, no, it's not 100. It's a building built in the 1936, I think. It's the Marine Hotel. And they were doing concrete repairs, spawning works. So that's a piece of rebar. And you can put your hand around that piece of rebar because they cleared the concrete to enable them to treat it. And then they decided to prop. So I'm, I had a woozy fit the day I saw this. But that prop is holding up a piece of steel which is probably spanning 2 meters from each end where it goes into the concrete. It gets better. So this is the side view of the prop. You can see it's not plumb. That is a plastic sewer line. So if it's if it's a quarter 100-year-old building, they wouldn't have had plastic there. That's been rerouted due to some possible blockage in the pipe, which would be hidden in the floor, or could be hidden in the floor. And look at that. They're putting their load on top of where there should be a pipe. It's a bit scary. Come on. Okay, this is a video. I hope it's going to play. This is a forecourt to a service station, a petrol station. There's an ATM. There's scaffolding. There's their health and safety, a little orange beacon in a well-lit area, as you can possibly see. Okay, so already someone's in trouble because that shouldn't have been put up like that. No one's planned that. And as John says, an accident is a failure of management and therefore a planned event. So the guy gets up and then he falls over and eventually passes out. I don't think we need to watch any more of it. So this is University of Fort Hare. And when they had the site handover, the guy was talking about getting his little plastic bucket toilets. And I said, but there's a sewer there. Put a backdrop into it, which he did. So there is temporary works, which doesn't give you access to the building site. But definitely you've got water in there, you've got flushable toilets. It's just better than those horrible plastic things. Andrew, this is our job in East London. So guys, that's the N2 going to Kai Bridge. And here's some temporary works, access scaffolding, it's a hanging basket for cleaning the sides of the bridge. These baskets don't go on to above the actual traffic unless there's traffic management, but this is on the abutment. But there's a wheel over here, there's a wheel on the far side, there's a wheel over there, but there's also a wheel over here, and this wheel wasn't touching the face of the bridge. And it's important to note that they had been working in there, and there was a piece of paper to say this had been checked, and it was safe by a competent person. Anyway, some other temporary works. This is the Seagull block of flats on the beachfront in Port Elizabeth, and there's a man lift. We basically put on a 12th floor onto the building. It was that the 11th floor was a penthouse. It's now got a double volume penthouse, and that's how we got the material and people up, because they didn't want us inside the building. But you can see there's a lot of scaffolding around the building. That's us taking down that's about a meter deep concrete beam, and we removed all of them on this side. So there's the big crane and just a picture of all the scaffolding. That over there is a 4 meter wide by 1 meter high window, double glazed. And in this picture, it was there, but on the 17th of December, it landed down here at about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a bit scary. This is a tank farm we built in PE. So this is steel that's been rolled and it's brought to site. And these cages have wheels that run on the edge of the steel up here. And the one wheel has got a chain attached to it, like an old garage door. So you pull yourself along and then you hook the chain and then you weld. So there's some temporary works for you. And on this, there's the roof for that tank. It's the same tank. So that was assembled on the ground and then picked up into position. so that you don't have to have support work and inside your tank. It's just something to think about. You as engineers design things, and it's good to be able to say, I put my mind into this, and I made a decision to go with this for health and safety. In fact, you are actually supposed to. In fact, you are actually legally required to be able to produce a document like that. When it's going to be asked for, I don't know. But Riccianelli is an Italian guy that in about the 1400s did a dome on a church in Florence. And he was able to build this dome without using temporary work, which was a very big achievement in that time. Interesting to note that he also had a kitchen in the church so that people wouldn't leave the site to go look for food, because there would be no drink at the church in the kitchen. And he also discovered that masons working on scaffolding that had handrails did their work faster than those that didn't have handrails. And that's in the 1400s. Some other temporary works. Does anyone know what this is?
It's a bridge deck being jacked up.
Yeah. So this is Impa Construction. This is on the south coast of Natal. You guys can see there's pads being put in there. There's steel being put in there to spread the load. There's the hydraulic jacks. There's going to be another one over there and another one over there. Steel on the top to spread the load. It's an amazing thing. It's amazing watching these guys. So there's the problem. You can see the expansion joint at the top is a lot smaller than the expansion joint at the bottom. They've obviously increased the size of the support. And there's it finished. So you can see the sea. If we go back, you can't see anything through there. You can see the sea through there. And there's some more temporary works. Okay, that's it from me. I hope I'm not over time. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, William. Yeah, it reminds me when I attended training 20 years ago that John was delivering. I remember he opened the training by saying, just remember your primary role is to prevent injury and harm. So yeah, one would think that if you do have an engineering qualification, you can apply just basic, I don't want to call it common sense, but sense. And so, William, thanks very much for that practical collage there. We are running a little bit behind time by about 9 minutes. So, John, we were going to put you up for 25 minutes. If you can try and keep it to that, that's fine, but it doesn't matter if you go a little bit over. So next up is the role of engineers in health, safety and well-being. Professor Smallwood again. Thank you.
Yeah. Chair, I've been admitting people to the event. I do not know why it's been popping up on my screen, but I've been doing it. So
Yeah,
just for the record.
Same here. Same here.
Okay. I just hope I can share this thing this time.
Yeah.
Now, there we go again.
And then just while you're getting up and running, John, if you have got problems seeing the presentation, I'm seeing in the chat, someone made a good suggestion. They said try and join on your browser as opposed to the actual app on your PC. So maybe that does the trick for those who are really battling to see the slides.
I just do not know why I cannot see my presentation. It's open behind Teams, and I can't remember what I did with the previous one.
If you hit share and it gives you options, you must use screen, and then whatever you're seeing is what we're seeing. I don't know if that helps, John.
Okay, and
yeah,
now
here we go. Yeah, that's
You
great.
see it now?
That's
oh,
done.
no
Just
wonder
gotta
I
go
don't. It was
into
so
presentation mode, John.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. Is that
There we go.
clear?
100.
All good.
Okay. Right. Thank you again, Chair. So I first researched and presented relative to this aspect of construction H&S in 1995. And in among others, you'll notice the journal of SAICE, and also at the third South African Conference on Engineering Education. One of my more notable contributions is chapter 14, Health and Safety in the Architect's Handbook of Construction Project Management, published by Ariba Enterprises. And then further, that's just a minor snapshot as such of the role of engineers and architects in construction health and safety. But this presentation is based on a recent article, the draft 2024 construction regulations, long overdue overhaul of addressing designing for construction health and safety issues and related interventions, is passed. And then 6 chapters in applied construction health and safety, co-authored by Professor Haupt and I. And I basically authored, you'll note, the design related chapters. So there's the cover, the title. A major challenge in terms of construction health and safety is that the respective identities of work, which is very frustrating to a professor of construction management and an ex-contracts manager, is that it focuses on projects and not practices, as in the case of consulting engineering practices, or in the case of construction, the business of construction. And the reality is that the practice or the business influences the approach to H&S on projects. The Inyaka Bridge collapse prior to the George building collapse last year on the 6th of May was the big one. And there was a loss of 14 lives, 7 VKE, the consulting engineering practice, and 7 Concor, the general contractor. Now, the causes and the contributory causes were highlighted in the Department of Labor's Section 32 inquiry report. Now, ironically, this is the only Section 32 inquiry report relative to construction to date. And you'll note it was published in 2002. It's approximately 55 pages in length. But you'll notice the last 2 causes, the use of design and construction personnel decision-making levels without appropriate qualification experience in incremental launch bridges. No independent design reviews were conducted of either the temporary or permanent works. Now, please remember that, because I'm going to present the Blowkrans Bridge shortly. Contributory causes, the lack of experience on part of design personnel, once again. And then secondly, the lack of clear instructions in the project specification and clear indications on the consulting engineer's design drawings as to the position of the sliding path, which resulted in incorrect interpretations being made. Now, that slide path was a big issue. Just moving on to the integration, design, and construction, just pardon that, a chasm logo there. This masonry bridge over the Tweeded Coldstream, that dates back to 1866. But the designers of the bridge designed the centering for the masonry. So that's a prime example of integrating design and construction. Of course, the Blowkrans Bridge, which was undertaken by the Department of Transport, or they were the client rather, not undertaken by them. It was M&R Concor, and I think Liebenberg and Stander were the consulting engineers. So this was probably one of these successes. Tragically, 1 life was lost on this project, I remember. I was a 4th-year construction management trainee working in the purchasing department at the time, so I bought a lot of whatever for those 3 bridges. But yes, this journal paper highlights 2 aspects there, notable for the close cooperation and team effort which were achieved by the consulting contractor and encouragement given by the client. Secondly, consulting engineers had clearly indicated in their design how the task should be tackled and worked closely with the contractors in converting the drawings they had supplied to reality. Furthermore, if I'm not mistaken, there was third-party peer review. So yes, designers H&S related performance, this recent study, which Dr. Rolili and I are still busy with, these are findings from the pilot phase. We presented potential respondents with 250 aspects and parameters related to health and safety. I've extracted the design related aspects and parameters. And you'll note the mean score, second column from the right. So that's between 1 and 5. So you'll note all the design-related mean scores are below average. I've left temporary works design in there. For those of you civil engineering designers, 2.77 out of 5. Interior designers were the lowest and ranked 238 out of 250, 2.27. So it's just a reason. Is there a link between design and H&S incidents? A landmark study, and it's a seminal work. That report compiled, authored by Mike Beam in the United States of America. And he conducted a study that investigated or interrogated 450 incidents in construction. And he determined that in 151 cases, 33.6%, the hazard that contributed to the incident could have been eliminated or reduced if design for construction H&S measures had been implemented. The influence of designers, and I mentioned to the chair, Andrew, that I would briefly address this. So there's a direct and an indirect influence. The concept design, the general design, choice of structural frame. Of course, your client might, for example, be the South African Institute of Steel Construction. And I think their original building in Braamfontein in downtown Johannesburg was a structural steel frame structure. So sometimes the designer doesn't have a choice. And of course, we are a reinforced concrete framed country as such, as opposed to structural steel. Details, provision for services, specification materials, finishes and processes, consideration of H&S during design coordination and constructability reviews, designing for H&S and designing for quality are 2 of 12 designing for constructability principles. Reference to H&S during the pre-tender site visit, which should be mandatory upon site handover, during progress meetings, during site inspections and site discussions. However, designers do influence health and safety indirectly. The selection of or advice regarding the type of the procurement system, the traditional construction procurement system, which we're all familiar with, design and then bid. Invariably, the lowest price is contractor selected, which of course may be the biggest mistake, unless there was a dash of collusion. And then advice or selection of advice regarding preparation of contract documentation. Most standard contract documents pay limited attention to health and safety. Decision regarding the advice with respect to project duration. Now, this is a big issue. Compressed project schedules do not promote not just worker well-being, but also designer well-being for that matter. Facilitation of financial provision for H&S, unless there's a level playing field, contractors are possibly unlikely to make the requisite financial provision for H&S. H&S pre-qualification of contractors, the site location, and you'll see shortly, sometimes the designer, the lead designer or the construction project manager doesn't have a choice. Site coverage is important, particularly in building construction. And of course, the status of design upon commencement of construction is a big problem in the South African construction industry, and not only our industry, but there always changes. When a motor vehicle manufacturing process is initiated, you do not, change the color of the seats and the tinting to the windows, etc. So here's you could say an over-the-top case, but the upper aerial cableway station posed many challenges to the client and, of course, the designers and, of course, the contractor, which was Murray and Roberts Cape. And, of course, mist is a challenge. It can be, the mountain can be enveloped in seconds. They had to establish a construction camp on the top of Table Mountain. You'll notice there are steel stainless steel guy ropes tying down the temporary accommodation. Sheer face construction takes on a new dimension. You'll notice Dr. Claire Deacon is accredited with a photo. She was Marion Roberts Cape's occupational health consultant, not H&S consultant. That's 1 kilometer up, and yes, very challenging project. And of course, from an environmental perspective, although we're focusing on HSW, you can imagine part of the floral kingdom and the fynbos, and the concrete buckets were actually had a form of condom attached to them so that the concrete did not dribble onto the vegetation, etc. There were dussies, as you can see, and of course, now we're moving on to the famous helicopter crash in Strand Street. This is more mechanical engineer orientated because that Sikorsky was intended to convey mechanical equipment for the rooftop. And it flew up Strand Street, you could say, fortunately on a Sunday. And unfortunately, its tail rotor clipped the Stanek billboard, and then the tail of the Sikorsky further connected with a building, and the Sikorsky went down. And we always hear about professionals. Sadly, the crew of the helicopter all passed away. There were 4 fatalities there and quite a mess. There's a very nice visual in the form of a media article, and it indicates you can view this in your own time. But the point is, as with all accidents, which I refer to as failures of management, we must acknowledge, even if it's difficult, that there is no such thing as an accident. Accidents are planned in detail, and this one was planned. It was preventable, of course. So a simple 3D scan of the neighborhood would have highlighted the hazards and the risks, especially in the form of that Stanek billboard. So it amplifies the role of planning in general, and specifically client baseline risk assessments as per the 2014 construction regs, designer H&S specifications, designer reports, contractor H&S specifications, H&S plans. And my comment there, and I'm not joking, construction is not a Hollywood movie set. So the 3 phases of project risks, generally 3: concept, and that's not concept design, but it's the risks arising from the idea. Now, in the case of that upper aerial cableway station, the client had no choice because they had an existing aerial cableway. So, and they needed to upgrade. But you'll remember from the visuals, the sheer face construction, a maximum wind speed of 130 kilometers per hour. Lowest temperature, including wind chill, of -12 degrees. The tablecloth can envelop the mountain in minutes, undulating terrain, and Cape Cobras. Now, those are the items, or issues rather, that should be addressed in a BRA. Then we have design, construction works arising from the design. In situ work at elevated heights as opposed to using prefabricated sections. Specification of heavy materials, my famous and whatever, precast concrete curb, sections, materials containing hazardous chemical substances. So these should be addressed in a design HIRA. Construction work risks, activities or tasks such as excavations in collapsible soils. But as we all know, in terms of the construction regulations, geotechnical reports are required. Cutting paving blocks, my other pet hate. These should be addressed in a construction HIRA. But of course, cutting paving blocks should be identified during the design HIRA. The draft 2024 construction regulations in terms of the clients, the 24 regs required a BRA. Now that's no longer a requirement in the draft 2024. And now the client's required to prepare documented design risk assessment. Now, I don't know if the people involved with the amendment of the construction regulations are confused, or if they are confused and or I'm not sure what it is, but a client cannot provide a designer with a design risk assessment. And furthermore, it's not included in the definitions. And then in terms of designers, the 2024 and draft 2024 versions do not refer to design hire. It may be implied, but it's not explicit. And that's particularly important for the uninitiated designers. It should be explicit and elaborated on, and then guidelines should address design hire. Unfortunately, the 2017 guidelines, the construction regulations, can hardly be deemed to be guidelines. Then how many reviews of design hire have been undertaken by the OH&S Inspectorate? That is, how many architectural practices, how many consulting engineering practices have been visited? Probably zero, and the same applies to designer reports. I'm just going to run through these design hire practices. I could spend a half a day on these alone. So you need to document the design hire process, review the client designer H&S specification, maintain a register of project hazards and risks, which you can refer to in the case of new projects. Gather H&S information relative to the projects, assemble H&S expertise, identify hazards, avoid or eliminate hazards, amend designs, amend details, substitute materials, identify residual hazards, identify risks from residual hazards, assess, prioritize, investigate the selected risks, focus on significant, unusual, difficult risks, prepare design and construction method statements, provide information on the residual risks, for example, on drawings or in schedules, prepare a designer report for the clients, that's a legal requirement, provide H&S information on tender documentation, maintain registers for construction and project hazards and risks, and I will present you with an example shortly. Review the construction phase H&S plan, that is so that you, as the designer, can interrogate how the contractor intends to respond to residual risks. Monitor construction activities relative to design hires, conduct site risk assessments and actions, directions, revisit the process. If design changes, consider H&S during maintenance, contribute to the H&S file, and compile a project H&S lessons learned report. Now, reducing risk through design and specification, this prefabricated structural steel headgear is a fine example of how working at heights can be mitigated. And of course, the sections are craned into position. You'll notice that there's communal protection there in the form of a balustrade and, of course, a cat ladder. That photo 21 provides a better view. And this is a case of where an excavation's been undertaken against or adjoining an existing building. So there's raking shoring. You'll notice that's from a health and safety executive publication in 1999. This is a personal photograph I took in 1987. I first used it in 2003. We had to form an opening through an existing 230 millimeter thick reinforced concrete lift shaft. The structural engineer on the project was concerned likely damage to the structural integrity of the lift shaft, which is approximately 11 floors. And I then happened upon the thermal lance method, and we acquired a quotation variation order was issued. But there were a lot of benefits from using the thermal lance, health and safety and ergonomics and time. This very simple, I refer to it as simple composite slab, not seen that often. And of course, the Department of Labor, that is the then Department of Labor, can tell you several, if not more, of these have collapsed, and there are some obvious reasons therefore, one of them being inadequate temporary support. But that is backbreaking in nature. And of course, if it's not, once again, William showed a J-head or U-head jack, which is a very dangerous item to use, because unless it's spiked, then it's of no real value. But of course, these pre-stressed, precast, hollow core slab sections have become more than popular in our South African construction industry, and you'll see that dates back to 2004. And there are, needless to say, hazards and risks related to positioning those hollow core slab sections, pinch industries, but of course it's less backbreaking, and then of course the lifting beam with the craneage. Just some design risk rating scales and responses. This presents a 3x3, and I included it because there's a table following this, or two tables. There's a 5x5, but it's in more detail, and sometimes the 3x3 is a lot easier. So the color coding alludes to the response. So this is an output of the design hire process, and you notice reference SW2 is concrete block paving. Cutting paving blocks is the hazard, but due to a herringbone pattern, meeting a border, which is a stack bond. There's the raw risk, 3 times 2 equals 6. And then the pattern's been amended. The design action owner is the civil engineer. The residual risk is now 3x1, which is 3. And the future action, the designer to monitor during construction. You can work through these tables in your own time. But these were included in that applied construction health and safety. Then a project hazard and risk register example here. We can work site works. Curbing is the description or the activity. Handling heavy curbstones, those 1 meter long. I love asking engineers attending seminars and workshops. It's amazing. I get told they're 50 kilograms, but they're actually 94. The response, specify extruded in situ curbs, or you can use an in situ rolled curb. Respondent, none. Future action, none. And the status, it's completed. It's been dealt with. Unfortunately, I couldn't find my extruded curb photograph from Las Vegas in 2015. Here's construction hazardous activities and responses to reduce risks register for a design practice. You'll notice there's the activity, the example of the hazard, and the example of responses. But it's erudite to maintain such registers, especially for young graduates or interns. And Andrew, you spend a lot of time with your engineering academy. So yes, and of course, underpinning is not so common in South Africa, building construction activity, but there are major hazards with respect to that. And that's where design and construction method statements, in particular the sequence of construction, are important. The designer report, the intention is to, among others, respond to the designer H&S specification and to facilitate the development of the contractor H&S specification. Now, the construction regulation do not differentiate between a designer H&S spec and a contractor H&S spec. But remember, designers conduct hazard identification and risk assessment. They should during the design process, and they should reduce the raw risk to a residual risk, but that should be included in the contractor H&S specification, and they may not be able to mitigate the raw risk, then obviously that should be included. So better practice contents, the third blue bullet point, the designer H&S philosophy, the design philosophy statement for the project. What was done to mitigate project-wide indirect and direct hazards and risks, and the design-originated hazards and risks. The designing for construction H&S process, the response to the designer H&S specification, and the significant design and construction hazards and risks. They're the 4 sections which my consultancy has advocated since 2003. The H&S file, the problem with this H&S file is that the intention of the H&S file has never been realized. Contractors produce, let's say, contractor records of the excavation supervisor, whatever. But that's not the intention of the H&S file. And of course, the United Kingdom's construction design and management regulations, which basically spawned our construction regulations. Remember, their first version dates back many years. During the pre-construction phase, the principal designer must prepare a health and safety file appropriate to the characteristics of the project, which must contain information relating to the project, which is likely to be needed during any subsequent project to ensure the health and safety of any person. And my favorite example is a post-tension suspended reinforced concrete slab. You do not want the owner of the building or whoever inadvertently creating an opening through such a slab for obvious reasons. You are all engineers, or most of you are attending this fireside chat. So here's an overview of the designing for construction H&S process. The client BRA leads into the designer H&S specification, to the design hirer, to the designer report, the contractor H&S specification, H&S plan, and then the H&S file and the H&S closeout report. Integrating H&S, the problem is no one party is responsible in terms of the 2003, 2014, or draft 2024 construction regulations. It's all very well flagging all the stakeholders, which the construction regulations have done, but someone needs to be responsible. I advocate that construction project managers be that person. Of course, for the civil engineering sector, construction project managers are virtually absent. But yes, and then the question arises, should non-CPM principal agents be responsible? Does their tertiary education them empower them to be responsible therefore? And then, of course, there's the issue of personal or potential, rather, conflicts of interest. So, for example, structural engineer fulfilling both functions. The scope of work for categories of registration, the 6 statutory building environment councils must review their respective scope of work for categories of registration to ensure that they reflect better practice H&S, environmental, quality, and risk management, and reality. And then I highlighted the point that they focus on projects, not on the practice or business. Multi-stakeholder project H&S plans, Professor Harpter and myself advocated to the CIDB following the H&S status report, which we conducted the research for, to require, recommend best practice notes, whatever, multi-stakeholder project H&S plan. So what such a plan will indicate is what each stakeholder on the project must do relative to the 6 stages. And for that matter, there should be similar plans for the environment, quality, and risk. It makes sense. Inspections and review. The OH&S Inspectorate must review client and designer contributions to construction H&S. If you want a copy of that HSE initiatives in the UK related report, authored by Charnock there, I can send it to you. I have it electronically. Remember, H&S compliance is the 3rd stage in the 5-stage Anglo-American journey model. Now, tertiary built environment education, this is where we have problems in our country. I compiled a report for the Council for the Built Environment, 7th of July 2016. The report included, among others, a table which indicated the degree of support for the inclusion of 25 aspects in 13 disciplines. I took it on my own or whatever to extend the mandate, and I included 13 disciplines. I thought it's no good just addressing 7 or whatever. And it should be included ideally as a construction H&S subject or a component of a subject. And then statutory council and professional association accreditation panels must focus on and interrogate, note the word, the extent to which construction H&S and quality management are embedded in such programs. Remember the Enyuka Bridge collapse, it was a major quality related issue. So here we have the degree of support for the inclusion of 25 aspects in tertiary construction management H&S modules relative to 3. I've included civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. I didn't have enough space in terms of the slide, in any case, for all 13. So you'll notice just presenting the OH&S Act and the construction regulations is not good enough. And these were construction health and safety professionals, and industry people that responded to this survey. So you'll see the percentages are very high. Primary health promotion recorded the lower mean. Now that aspect mean there, delegates, attendees, is relative to the 13 disciplines, not just civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. But you'll see role of designers in construction, H&S, civil engineering 96.2, electrical engineering 90.9, mechanical engineering 95.5. Conclusions: the essence of construction H&S is the elimination of hazards and risks, or the very least, the mitigation thereof. Design influences and impacts on construction H&S. Designers have been legally liable in terms of Section 10 of the OH&S Act 1993. Never mind the construction regulations. Remember the overview of the designing for construction H&S process. Construction H&S is a multi-stakeholder issue. However, it requires an integrated effort managed by a single point responsible conductor. Until we as a construction industry reach that point, there are going to be, among others, more collapses of buildings and all structures. Recommendations: the scope of work for categories of registration must be revisited. Tertiary built environment education programs must embed, not address, construction H&S and quality management. The draft 2024 construction regulations must be revisited, and the OH&S inspector DL must review client and designer contributions to construction H&S. You'll notice there are a lot of references, which I will edit finally, Chair and delegates, and of course, both my presentations will be made available by SAICE, and they will be available on the Master Builders Association KwaZulu-Natal's Health and Safety Forum site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Professor Smallwood. That was a lot to take in, and thanks for presenting. In the interest of time, I'm not going to present my presentation. I'm simply going to drop a 1 megabyte PowerPoint converted to PDF into the chat. Well, I'll speak to Tom about how best to distribute it, because we are running out of time. Taki, would you like to take over from me for the Q&A?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thanks, Andrew. What I can do from my side, colleagues, so that there's also from the presenters an indication that they are more than willing to share the presentations. We have set up a SAICE Knowledge Trailblazer a web, an email address. So I will then, from my side, then email it out through to everyone. So that will be the mechanism. So we do have your email addresses from the registration. We'll then email each one a copy of the presentations. So I think colleagues also know, so we are also run out of time, but we did say we'll push through an extra of 10-15 minutes. So let's take hands. I think let me then give it over to the audience to then raise questions. Let's take your comments, your questions, and then I might have one or two in between. But yeah, I think let's focus on the crowd. Tiani, your hand is up first. You can come through. Tiani, we'll just unmute on your side. Okay, Adan, Tiani, are you still there? Okay, I think we might have lost Tiani. We can come back. We have got Brent. Brent, you can come through. Yours is the next hand.
I'm saying, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please continue.
I thank you for this opportunity. I currently just reviewed the 2024 draft construction regulations, so the health and safety ones, and I actually compared it to 2014. But I thought this may be the best platform to ask with all this expertise here. Specifically to regulation 27, where it makes specific reference to the requirement for the contractor to fence the site if it's next to public, the perimeter of a site. So I just was very specific, but I just want to know, how do we, because there's an expectation for example, the consultant and the client to allow this within the bill of quantities, but how do you enforce it if it's not in the bill of and yeah, just if it's more like a temporary fence, not a permanent fencing.
Yeah, yeah. And I take it that obviously there would be some at least compliance or regulation or legislation that would enforce you to at least comply. I see William, your hands up. Do you want to take that question, William?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I understand that a contractor, in fact, if you look at the Afrikaans word, the Afrikaans translation of contractor is a werksaannemer. So he's someone that takes on work. And I understand and I support him being paid for it. But Section 9 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act says that you will not do anything that will affect someone that's not employed by you. So if you're doing construction work and a little boy walks onto your site and falls into a hole and dies, you have just broken that law. So I have an issue with paying for things. If I go to East London tomorrow for Sandwell or for US Transnet, and I arrive there drunk, I've broken the law. You don't have to discipline me or pay me or whatever. I should arrive there sober. So I don't understand why contractors feel they must be paid for complying with the law. When I go to Absa Bank to draw cash, I don't know when last I did that, but there's a bulletproof window between me and the lady who's got all the money. I don't walk out there and say, listen, you charged me 10 Rand for bank fees, but I want to give you an extra 2 Rand because you've got a bulletproof screen. When we were buying Spar potatoes during COVID, we didn't say, look, we're going to give you a bit more. You want 10 Rand for this, we're going to pay you 12 Rand for this because you've got hand sanitation at the front door. So people shouldn't be paid for complying with the law. If you can't comply with the law, you shouldn't be contracting. And in fact, my opinion, and you guys are more qualified than me, if I am, let's say, building you a vegetable garden and there's a law that says you must do X, Y, Z, and I don't comply with that, you shouldn't pay me because I'm breaking the law. So I don't understand why we have to pay for people to comply with the law. Sorry, it's my little rant.
No, no worries. No, thanks, William. Look, I think it's also, there's some common sense also at the end of the day with some of these things. And yeah, the regulation, legislation, and the law is first. Prof. Smallwood, just your view on that?
Yes, I'm dogmatic. It's very simple. That's why I made mention of facilitate financial provision for construction health and safety. Just specify what the fence must consist of and include the measurement in a bill of quantities. And when you adjudicate the tenders, if it hasn't been allowed for, trash the tender. It's very simple. But we spend too much time in South Africa going around in circles debating the obvious. Incidentally, the National Building Regulations and Standards Act of 1977, Part F, also refers to enclosing sites. And that's why building inspectors should be monitoring that as well. But we won't how can I say, question the NHBRC and the building inspectorate, not today, but maybe this decade.
Prof, you on mute?
Yes, I've finished.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay. I think we all got pushed onto mute. No, thanks for that, Prof. Let's take the next hand. We've got Rob. Rob, you can come through.
Thanks, Takia. Can you hear okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue.
I'm not sure whether this is a question or an observation. I've been in the work at height industry as a specialist for 34 years now. Involved with STC, the Institute for Work at Height, various other bodies. I'm not an engineer. I'm the guy that does the work. But I'm also a tech SAICE and a director of the IWH for my sins. And over the years, I've been consulted by architects, building designers, construction firms, usually for the end product that they're looking at, what the building is going to do and what it has to do. And regularly, I have to refer them to Construction Reg 6, specifically F. Okay, what about post-construction, future maintenance, etc., etc.? And sometimes I've been asked for my opinion or expert input. I've given it. They turn around and say, oh yes, okay, that's great, wonderful, we'll do that. And on a few of the construction sites, I've been asked to come in and have a look and just okay it before they hand over the building. And in just about every case, what I've put to them has not been complied with. They've gone the cheap route. Whether it's the designer, whether it's the QS, whoever, I don't know who makes the final decisions. But they end up putting in all sorts of weird and wonderful contraptions usually that are not compliant. They've gone for the cheapest quote. One case that unfortunately led to a fatality nearly 2 years ago, post-construction. The equipment installed for a cleaning system was approximately a third of the price of a compliance system. And even though I'd reported this out to the building owner, the end client, they refused to actually change, which resulted in a fatal incident. I've seen things on construction sites, and I'm talking about basic stuff. Aluminium towers that are being used on rooftops that from 100 meters away I could clearly see those things were definitely not compliant and definitely not safe. And that was without a close inspection. Where are the checks and balances in the industry for this? You know, these were all major construction sites involved. I don't know how many subcontractors, but the bottom line is when the project is coming towards an end, the money has run out because of changes, delays, whatever the cause, and at the end of the day, it's the health and safety of people coming after construction that is usually affected, not always, sometimes it's during the construction phase, but it's something I feel very passionately about, and I think it needs to be looked at and addressed somehow, somewhere, some way for future reference. And yeah, as the previous question person was asking, you know, we've looked at 2024 construction regs. For the 2014 lot, the IWH put in, I think it was about a 54-page comment to DOL, as it was then. All the things that were missed out, not clear, blah, blah, blah. They were ignored totally, the whole lot of it. And yet the then Chief Inspector, Tibor Zana, came to us specifically. I knew Tibor very well then. He knew a lot of our executive. And he asked us for our input. And it was ignored. Why are we in this industry? Why do we have an association and a professional body specifically for that industry? And it is designed mainly for the construction industry. It's scaffolding, it's everything. Thanks.
No, thanks, Rob. No, very critical points that you raised there. And I think also on the maintenance side, it's, I mean, at the end of the day, besides construction, you also use scaffolding and the like for, maintenance work and all of that. Sometimes you see the lack of, I do recall once seeing on a multi-story building, they're installing roof gutters. But the guy was lying down on the roof. There was someone standing behind him holding his feet while they with a rope pulled up the gutter to connect to the end of the roof. So yeah, some very questionable practices out there. And that just a little question I wrote down on the side. I was going to just ask the panel members that also what you find that when it comes to your consulting fees and construction fees for the works we need to do, that there's always the cutting of fees, and what you find sometimes some of these safety elements or safety aspects are the first ones to get cut out. I might see them as being, unnecessary, but I mean, that has obviously a long-term impact. And again, as a client, should you be accepting, the lowest price? I mean, there needs to be some sort of quality check, just to make sure that, I mean, have you complied to all the safety and construction regulations, and that you're not cutting out something, and again, you've got future consequences of it. So, I mean, how do you hold the client accountable in that respect? So let me just check my panelists. Let me go through each one of them. Prof, just your view and opinion on this discussion.
Yeah, I can only commiserate with Rob, and I for one did not make a submission to the Department of Employment and Labor relative to the construction regulations. I'm not going to say why, but I bounced them, to use a nice word. I don't want to say nail them in the media, whether they're aware of the articles, but they're out there. I nailed them. Why I'm saying I nailed them during presentations. Not that it worries them. So Rob, you keep doing what you and other professionals have been doing and do, and hopefully you continue to do it. Because at some stage, someone's going to get caught out. And I have a sneaky suspicion that that moment is drawing very near due to a pending report that will become public. Yes, and then just to add, Taki, and delegates, yes, the South African construction industry is a subsector is one of several sectors, industry sectors in South Africa. You need to, or we must remember the prevailing culture in South Africa. It's actually toxic. And, jaywalking, littering, not wearing seat belts, taking shortcuts, shifting the blame, entitlement-itis, another classic sub-disease of South African-itis. So it's just such a big issue that we're dealing with. It's not easy to resolve, and I must just point out to you that you're not going to resolve it. We can keep chiseling away as SAICE has done today, and it's documented what SAICE has done today, and it's documented what the Institute for Working in Heights has done to date. But yes, for us to change the South African construction industry, and not just with respect to health, safety, and well-being, we need to pressure certain stakeholders. Now, SAPOA, I'm not sure how many construction health and safety related events they've arranged and hosted. Maybe you should phone them, the CEO, and ask her or him in alphabetic order how many they have arranged or hosted. So they're a very powerful body, and clients globally, not be careful that I mustn't use construction language during this SAICE event, but clients they pay, and they have the capacity to initiate change and to promote change. But contractors are on the receiving end as such. And in fact, designers have now joined contractors, could be even 2 decades ago, where designers are pressured to cut fees and to execute designs in a compressed period of time. It's terrifying what has happened in our South African construction industry. And of course, we experiencing building collapses, and they reared their head in the mid-90s. I mean, take the Carlton Center, for example. Take the Ponte Tower. Take the Standard Bank building that was, in a sense, built from the top down. They didn't collapse. So something's gone wrong in our construction industry, and the structure of the industry's also changed. subcontracting and pyramid subcontracting. So SMMEs, the construction mafia. And some people have never held a brick in their hand. Some people have never laid a brick. But they all want to be part of the construction process. So it's one major challenge. And I do not have the silver bullet, Chair. I think you were maybe looking to me for it, but I've sketched
It's complex.
enough,
It's-
and I've said enough.
I guess the best is that, like you were saying earlier on, is awareness. Like today's session and other sessions, we just need to continue with the awareness, and hope that with different client bodies, that we each now take this thing seriously and make sure that it's in our specifications when it goes out, that we shouldn't compromise. But it's complex, like you indicated, it's a very complex field. Okay, colleague, let me just take one last hand, and I might have one last comment from my side or question, and then we'll call it a session. Ishak, you can come through.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if this is an appropriate question for this meeting, but how do we handle bad, or rather totally incorrect designs that can result into not only health and safety, but deaths also? I came across a number of those things. I help certain contractors working out their quantities for formwork, and in the process, I come across a number of different designs, and some of those are. I think I've mentioned this in previous meetings, but my question is how do we handle this? I must say some of those engineers I did call and they took it well, while others didn't take it well. But it would have been a disaster if they didn't do the necessary changes to their design or whatever. Thank you.
No, definitely. I think that also is quite similar to what Prof. Smallwood had indicated earlier on, that some things you can design out, and then again, very interesting question. William, your hand is up. Do you want to answer that, or did you have a comment from before?
I've got a comment.
Yep.
Would you like me to give it?
No, go for it, William.
Okay, so the world says that there's 6 stages of the construction project. I believe there's at least 8, because once the building's built, you must have maintenance done to that building.
Yeah.
And then you have to take that building down and put it in a tip somewhere. I was involved with a company I can't name, big warehouse, and I said at the first meeting, I said, what are the chances of you guys going solar? And the CEO, who every month when I sent, and this is an international company, every month when I sent my audit, he commitment from management that you won't get. I've been doing this for 30 years. That's the first time it's ever happened. But I said, let's design the steel structure to have a place to connect hook bolts to now. So when you put your roof sheeting on, your preferred your professional sheeting contractor will waterproof those things. It didn't happen because the architect clearly has an issue with size. And I drove past this building the other day. It's an enormous building. I don't want to give anything away, but it's an enormous structural building that has fridges inside it, and they're still cold stuff. There is now solar panels on the roof. So it's a design, it's a mindset that we say, no, well, we're not going to listen to the health and safety IRC. We're just going to carry on with our own stuff. And then someone else must actually go up there. And I understand the person that installs solar panels is not a fall protection plan expert.
Yeah.
We could have done that beforehand, had that little piece galvanized, made sure the roof sheeting contractor who's an expert damp-proofed or sealed it so that there was no leak. I'll put money on the fact that what the solar panel installation has done is not as good quality as what would have been the roofing sheeting expert. So and unfortunately, there's a design issue there where egos are more important in people's lives.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is, and that's why, Rob, that's why you're gonna carry on having a job.
Mm. No, it's human. It's a human nature, it's human error story. But yeah, it's quite a unique thing trying to deal with people and emotions and whatnot. But yeah, no, rules and regulation need to trump people's feelings and all of that.
Yeah, maybe before I just want to close this. When I
Yeah.
was growing up, there was an advert on Springbok Radio that said "change to ego,"
Mm.
and I'd rather suggest all of you people lose your ego.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Yeah. No, thanks, William. Prof. Smallwood, just the question is read by Ishak. I don't know if you want to maybe just answer that one quickly or just give a comment on that one.
Yes. Ishak's question, of course, is more relevant than most people realize.
Yeah.
And we have a pending report, which may send shockwaves through the South African built environment. But we've had problems before where permanent works designs have been inadequate. And of course, this amplifies the need for professional construction managers and construction project managers. Our undergraduate program includes structures 1, 2, and 3. So our construction management graduates are familiar with elementary reinforced concrete design, structural steel design, load-bearing masonry design, and timber frame design. We're not engineers, but we are empowered to spot the mistake. I mean, what I pointed out as a fifth-year construction management trainee working for Murray and Roberts EP, building construction, I pointed out to an experienced structural engineer that he had not detailed 45-degree bars around a duct opening through a slab. And he looked at me. I mean, so yes, and in my day, I was part of that 1980s construction management brigade. So we used to always interrogate not just architects' drawings, but also structural engineers' drawings, civil engineers' drawings, and we spent an inordinate amount of time checking, including volume of steel, spans, blah, 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 blah. But the problem is with no barriers to entry, you do not have the BSc brigade managing construction projects, etc. So, but Ishak's, thank heavens, there are people such as Ishak who providing the service he does, and then they pick it up, because you can pick it up quite readily if you educated and trained, but not everyone's educated and trained. And then the whole issue of temporary works. Hopefully Ishak, the likes of Ishak, provide quite a comprehensive service out there. So that's just my comment with respect to that, Chair.
No, thanks for that, Prof. Okay, colleagues, I'm at a conference here and the music has started, so I'm hoping it's not disturbing it too much. So yeah, we'll look to the type, but I think just to maybe conclude on the last comment, like Prof. Smallwood alluded to in his presentation, we need to be each other's brothers and sisters keepers. So if you see something that's not right, to point it out. And I think it needs to be on us as professionals to then take that accountability to make sure that we point out things that we are not comfortable with. Maybe okay, as a closing shot, I know Andrew wanted to maybe just pull you in, but I'm also mindful of time. So to my panel, just maybe if you can then leave us with a call to action. So what can you leave the audience with? About the professional responsibility, shaping safer, more resilient, and healthier infrastructure for the future. So just your passing shot and advice you want to leave with the audience. Andrew, let me start with you.
Oh yeah, look, there's a duty of care, and it's in codes of conduct and codes of practice. So if you read the exit documentation, that'll be in the slideshow that I distribute. You'll see. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. William, if you can leave us with your passing shot.
call me if you need help. I'd rather not have a death, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to come out on weekends too. Cheers.
No, thanks. Prof. Smallwood?
Yes, I'm near certain SAICE will continue to champion construction health and safety and construction health, safety and well-being. As you saw, I wasn't trying to impress you folks, but the journal of SAICE, published OH&S related papers. My first one way back in 1995. It's only 30 years ago. So SAICE has contributed, but a lot of people are going to be find themselves in trouble as such in the very near future. Yeah, and as Andrew stated, we have a duty of care as professionals. Never mind the religious aspect, but it's an ethical issue and it's a matter of professionalism. And thanks again, Chair. I'm always available.
Yeah. No, thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. And look, this is the SAICE Knowledge Trailblazer, so we are here to then share knowledge. So please feel free to then use this platform to share your various articles and papers. We will then support you through SAICE. And again, I will definitely look at doing a follow-up discussion on this. So in the next coming months, next year sometime, we'll do a follow-up discussion on this topic and take it forward from there. To the colleagues online, if you have any further comments, questions, I will then drop them in the or just if you can drop them in the chat, and we'll try and respond back to you on that. When I do email you from the SAICE email for the Knowledge Trailblazer, you again then more than welcome to then drop any comments, questions from then. We'll get the speakers to then give you feedback. So yeah, we do hope that you enjoyed today's session. It was very insightful. I found it very insightful, and again, just a reminder: health and safety is important. It needs to be everything we breathe, on site in our work. You cannot, forego that.